Is your student considering going to an online college? If so, no matter what school they're considering going to, they're probably wondering if there is financial aid available. Well, one of the main ways to access financial aid is by submitting FAFSA. So, what we need to know is, are those online schools, if that's what your student is considering, accepting FAFSA and therefore awarding financial aid? If that's something that you're wondering, then stick with me because I'm going to tell you exactly if that's the case, and if so, how to find it based on the schools that your student is considering. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System and Debt Free Degree Lab, where we redefine paying for college to help students and families build strong financial futures and avoid decades of student loan debt. We primarily do this through scholarships, but financial aid is such a huge piece of this as well. So we are in this FAFSA world quite a bit. Now, make sure you hit subscribe because in addition to FAFSA, we cover so many different strategies every single week to help your family pay for college without student loan debt. Now, the reason students might want to attend online school may vary. Maybe there's health reasons or physical conditions that they don't want to physically go to class. Maybe they want a specific major that's only available on an online class or an online school. Maybe it has to do with the cost. A lot of times you can save a lot of money if online. For example, your student might not need to pay for housing or transportation or room and board, whatever it is. All of those expenses that come with living on campus or attending a four-year university. And lastly, maybe they want to go to college and work and they don't think that they can manage both with an in-person school. No matter what the reason is, if your student is considering an online college, that's totally fine. We just want to make sure we're considering a few important factors before we make that decision, especially when it comes to figuring out if it's more affordable than others. Now, comment below, is your student considering a school online? If so, which one? And if you comment below, then we can go ahead and take a look and see what we see on our side as far as this online school. Now, the good news, the answer to the question of do online colleges accept FAFSA? The answer to that question is yes, but some of them do, not all of them do. So we do need to be investigative and aware of what the school that your student is specifically considering does when it comes to FAFSA. Now, in order for an online school to accept FAFSA and to award financial aid through FAFSA, they have to be something called an eligible Title IV school. And this means that they meet certain criteria and regulations, and they're also regularly audited to make sure that they meet certain criteria, certain level of quality to verify the degree. So if your student is going to invest tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in a degree, you want to make sure that that degree counts, that degree is legitimate. And so the only way to do that is to make sure that they have certain standards and are certified in that way. Now, one of the fastest and easiest ways to see if the school that your student is considering is Title IV, is approved for FAFSA, is to simply talk to the financial aid office and ask them if that's the case. Or you can look at the financial aid office's website and see if they have it on there. If you don't see it, then I would reach out to them and ask. You can also look it up on the FAFSA's government website. Now, the other thing when it comes to FAFSA and universities, whether online or not, is if it is accredited. So accreditation matters. You can learn more about this on our other video, which is what is a college accreditation. We can link to that in the description, which, by the way, you'll find all the important links in the description below. But that accreditation is what allows the U.S. Department of Education, it gives them a standard to know should we give this school funding or not. So accreditation is a tool to measure the quality of that education. Now, the U.S. Department of Education actually has a tool where you can look this up specifically to see if the college is accredited or not. Again, this is also something that you should be able to find on the school's website. Now, you've probably heard about scams here and there about online schools. These are something that we call degree mills. This is where an unaccredited school or a business basically awards degrees, we'll say, without requiring classwork that meets college level standards. This is a thing. We've seen it. In fact, we just had a huge settlement nationally with certain scam universities. So we do want to make sure that we don't fall prey to these. And one of the best ways to avoid that is to make sure that any school that your student's considering, again, whether online or not, is indeed accredited. Now, you might be thinking, okay, we can make sure that our school's accredited, that it's Title IV, and so therefore we can submit FAFSA, but why is this such a big deal? Maybe you've been told by a neighbor or a friend or a family member that submitting FAFSA isn't even worth your time anyway. Well, before I get into some specific tips on how to make sure that your family can maximize FAFSA, let me just explain to you why it is so important. First and foremost, FAFSA is how you can access government funds. So your student, any student, should always want to get debt-free money to pay for college. So if they can tap into that, one of the fastest and easiest ways to do that is by submitting FAFSA. So this, again, can give them access to something called Pell Grant and other monies, which we cover. Again, we have a whole FAFSA playlist that you can check out. But even if your family isn't eligible for government money, many schools, online and in person, require FAFSA in order to consider a student even for their funding. So even if it's not necessarily through the government, if it's their own funding, a lot of times they require FAFSA as well, because this is how they can get a better image of your family's financial situation and therefore can decide how much money they want to give your student. So FAFSA opens up the doors to, yes, government money, but it also opens the doors to private institution money. The schools can specifically require it as well. Lastly, with FAFSA, even if your student doesn't get any debt-free money, it typically does open up the doors to some of the best terms when it comes to student loans. So the federal loans, as we just saw, they are with the loan forgiveness and all of the perks during COVID with freezing interest and payments and all of that. Federal loans typically have the best terms. So, and also your student can take those out without a cosigner for a certain amount each year. So again, this is money that you can only access through submitting FAFSA. Okay, so now that hopefully you understand the importance of this FAFSA requirement and why your students should make sure that their school is eligible for it, let's get into some specific tips on how to make sure that we do that. Now, the first tip here is to do the research. Some schools that do offer federal Pell Grants, so therefore the debt-free money through FAFSA, include University of Phoenix, American Public University, and Arizona State University. So we want to, again, do that research, even including what I mentioned earlier about going to the website and researching, are they accredited or not? Are they Title IV or not? The next tip I have is many reputable brick and mortar schools are offering online components. So this is something that your student can consider as well. It doesn't have to be a fully online institution. It can be actually an online branch of an in-person institution. COVID forced universities to really streamline this process. And so some of these online experiences are top-notch. They don't have to be a lesser than experience. This also means that students can take one-off classes if they want to through certain institutions online, which means that they can access some top schools without physically going to them. So online schooling really can be a great opportunity here. Another tip here is that even online schools can offer scholarships, or external scholarships can even be used for online schools, especially if they are accredited. So one of the things that we offer is a free training on how to find legitimate scholarships with less competition, especially those external ones that can be used at any institution that's accredited. So if you want to learn more, you can click on the link in the description below or somewhere here on the screen, or you can just go to theScholarshipSystem.com/free training and you can register for that scholarship training. Now, you'll want to make sure that your student and you read the requirements and make sure that it is allowed for an online institution if that's what your student decides to attend. So that said, going to an online school, there are many reasons that a student would want to do so. There are many perks for it, but we want to make sure that we do get to submit FAFSA and have access to all of those funds, even if our student school is online. So this is very important to understand. And again, I gave you some very specific steps that you can do to make sure that that's the case for your students. Now, again, don't forget to hit subscribe, because every week we release a new strategy on paying for college, and I will see you in the next video.